I used to think I was doing business the right way. Then, I had to be honest with myself. My wife could probably run my coffee company better than I do. Not because she knows coffee, but because she's naturally better at things that actually matter in business. Understanding people, building relationships, thinking without reacting. That's when it hit me. I've been doing business like a man in a world that rewards thinking like a woman. And the stats back it up. Companies with female founders generate 2x more revenue per dollar invested. Female-led startups have 35% higher ROI. But here's the kicker. It's not because women are better at business. It's because they've naturally mastered 7 specific approaches that most men completely ignore. I've spent the last 3 years studying successful female founders. From Sara Blakely building Spanx with 0 funding, to Melanie Perkins giving up control of Canva to scale faster. Even J.K. Rowling, my favorite author, who turned rejection into the biggest literary empire of our generation. And no, I'm not bashing on men here. I plan on doing a video about male founders soon, but there is just something extremely valuable worth mentioning here. So if you're a man, grab a notebook. If you're a woman, especially if you're on the fence about starting a business, let this video be your permission to start. What I discovered changed everything about how I run my coffee company. And the 7th secret, it's the one thing my wife does that I literally cannot replicate. And it's probably the single most important business skill you've never developed. Section 1, they don't need to fail to learn. All right, let's dive into the first secret. And this one's going to mess with everything you think you know about learning. Most men, myself included, we learn by touching the hot stove. We have to fail to believe something is real. But women, they've mastered something I call observational absorption. Let me paint you a picture. I'm at home with my 3 kids, and my daughter's about to touch the stove. I stop her. No, hot, ouch. She looks at me, starts to reach toward it, then pulls her hand back. No, hot, ouch, she says, mimicking me perfectly. And my son, same scenario. He looks at me, nods, and then immediately touches the hot stove to learn for himself. Now he'll never forget that lesson, but he had to burn himself to learn it. And no, this isn't just a cute parenting story. This is exactly how most men approach business. When I started Black Ink Coffee, I had to fail my way through everything. Burned through my first wholesale relationship by over-promising. Lost clients by not understanding their actual needs. Nearly went broke because I thought I knew better than everyone else. But here's what blew my mind. Every female-run cafe I work with now, and I mean every single one, they ask the right questions before making moves. One owner, Sarah, called me before even trying our coffee. Parker, I've heard great things, but I need to understand your consistency standards, reliability, and how you handle rush orders. A male cafe owner, he'd typically order it, try it, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, then figure it out from there. Sara Blakely didn't launch Spanx by trial and error. She spent 2 years researching, asking questions, understanding the market before cutting up her first pair of pantyhose. J.K. Rowling didn't just start writing Harry Potter. She studied the children's book market, understood what publishers wanted, built entire world-building systems before writing chapter 1. They absorbed the lessons without needing the burns. Here's what this means for you. Stop thinking that failing forward is the only way to learn. Start asking more questions. Study what works for others. Talk to others who've done what you want to do. Your ego might tell you that's weak, but your bank account will tell you it's smart. And the women who are crushing it right now, they figured out how to learn from everyone else's mistakes instead of making their own. But learning isn't enough if you can't connect with people. And that's where the second secret gets really interesting. Section 2, empathy meets strategy. This second secret is where most men completely lose the plot. We think empathy is soft, we think strategy is hard. Women figured out they're the same thing. Let me take you back to that Walmart parking lot for a minute. I'm on night 47 of sleeping on coffee sacks, and I get the call from one of my cafe partners. Parker, I hate to do this, but we're 3 weeks behind on rent. Can you extend our payment terms? Old me would have thought business is business. Pay your bills, or find another supplier. But I've been watching how my wife handles these situations. She doesn't hear the problem, she hears the person behind it. So instead of going straight to policy, I asked, "What's really going on, Mike?" And it turns out his main barista had quit right before their busy season. He was working 80-hour weeks, couldn't train anyone properly, and was losing customers because service was slow. Here's what a typical male response would be. "Sorry man, figure it out. Business is business." But I remembered watching my wife with our kids. When they're acting out, she doesn't just address the behavior, she asks what is underneath it. So I said, "Mike, what if I send over some barista training guides I have? You keep our coffee flowing, and we'll work out a payment plan that makes sense for both of us." That cafe became our highest volume account within 6 months. Mike referred us to 2 other locations. That's empathy meeting strategy. Look at Melanie Perkins building Canva. She didn't just create design software, she understood that people felt intimidated by design. Her empathy for that feeling became her entire business strategy. Or take Codie Sanchez. She doesn't just buy boring businesses, she empathizes with owners who built something valuable but are ready to step back. Her strategy is literally built on understanding what people really want, not just about what they say they want. Here's what this looks like in practice. Before you solve a problem, understand the emotion behind it. Your customers aren't just buying your product, they're buying how it makes them feel. Your employees aren't just working for money, they're working for respect, growth, recognition. The female founders dominating right now, they built their entire strategies around understanding people first, then serving them. Most men build a product and try to convince people they need it. Women figure out what people actually need and build that. It's not about being nice. It's about being smart enough to know that people buy from people they trust, and trust comes from feeling understood. But understanding people is only half the battle. You also need to know which risks are worth taking, and that's where things get really counterintuitive. Section 3, calculated risk takers. Here's where most people get female entrepreneurs completely wrong. They think women are more cautious, more risk averse, but that's not what I've seen at all. Women don't take fewer risks, they take smarter risks. I'm sitting at our kitchen table, sketches of coffee bags spread everywhere, talking a mile a minute about roasting profiles and wholesale margins. I've got this whole vision mapped out, quit my stable military job, invest our savings, dive headfirst into the coffee business. My wife looks at me and asks the question that stopped me cold. What if this doesn't work? What happens to our family? I didn't have an answer because I was thinking like a man, all or nothing. Swing for the fences, bet everything on this dream. All you need is belief, right? She was thinking like a woman. What's the plan if the dream becomes a nightmare? At first, I thought she wasn't being supportive. I'm thinking, come on, believe in me here. This is going to be huge. But she wasn't questioning my ability, she was questioning my strategy. What if we start smaller? Keep your day job, test the market, build proof before we risk everything. That felt like failure to me. Real entrepreneurs take big risks, right? They burn boats, go all in. But here's what she understood that I didn't. Smart risk isn't about the size of the bet, it's about the quality of the information you have before betting. So instead of quitting my job and diving in, I started Black Ink on nights and weekends. I kept my software job while testing whether people actually wanted what I was selling. That cautious approach saved us. Because when I finally did make the leap, I had customers waiting, systems in place, and proof that this wasn't just a fantasy. This is exactly what successful female founders do differently. This is exactly what Sara Blakely did with Spanx. She didn't quit her job and bet everything on her dream. She kept her day job, tested the concept, built proof before making the big leap. J.K. Rowling didn't quit teaching to write Harry Potter. She wrote early mornings, late nights, built the story while keeping her income stable. Even Melanie Perkins, she didn't try to build Canva first. She started with a yearbook design tool, learned the market, built relationships with investors, then scaled the bigger vision. Women are better at asking, what's the smallest risk I can take to learn the most? Men ask, what's the biggest risk I can survive? One question builds sustainable businesses, the other builds great failure stories. Section 4, collaboration over ego. The fourth secret is probably the hardest one for men to swallow. We're taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that delegation means you're not essential, that real leaders do it all themselves. Women figured out that's completely garbage. I'm watching how different cafe owners handle their businesses, and there's a clear pattern. The female owners operate completely different than the guys. The women, they're constantly connecting with each other, sharing resources, referring customers to each other, even when they're competitors. One owner, Sarah, calls me up. "Parker, I've got a catering client that's too big for us to handle. Are you interested in taking it on?" A male cafe owner would never make that call. We hoard opportunities. We compete instead of collaborate. We want more. We want the entire cake. But Sarah understood something I was missing. Her success didn't depend on my failure. Let's look at Melanie Perkins again. When Canva needed to scale, she didn't hold on to control like most male founders would. She brought in people smarter than herself for specific areas of her business. She gave up ownership percentages because she knew 18% of something massive beats 100% of something small. Codie Sanchez built her entire business model around collaboration. She doesn't try to run every boring business herself. She finds the right people, gives them ownership, creates systems where everyone wins. Here's what this looks like practically. Stop trying to be the smartest person in every room. Start trying to be the person who connects the smartest people. When I finally started asking female entrepreneurs for advice, my business transformed. Not because they gave me some secret formula, but because they showed me how to build a team that actually wanted me to succeed. The women crushing it right now, they're not doing it alone. They're building armies of people who are personally invested in their success. Of course, collaboration only works if you can handle pressure without falling apart. And that's where I learned the most humbling lesson of all. Section 5, resilient under pressure. The fifth secret is where I had to eat some serious humble pie. I thought I knew what resilience looked like. I spent over 6 months in the Sahara Desert, slept 100 nights in a Walmart parking lot on coffee sacks, lost my biggest client at midnight while living in my car. That's tough, right? Surely that's resilience, right? But then I watched my wife give birth to our third child. I'm talking many hours of labor, no epidural. And in the middle of active labor, full of contractions, she's still making sure our other kids are okay, that I've eaten something, and that the nurse knows she's grateful for everything she's doing. I realized something that shook me. My resilience was about surviving hard things. Her resilience was about taking care of everyone else while surviving hard things. That's when I understood why female founders handle pressure differently. When J.K. Rowling was writing Harry Potter, she wasn't just dealing with rejection from publishers. She was a single mom on welfare, dealing with depression, raising her daughter alone. But she didn't just endure it, she used the pressure to fuel something bigger. Most men under that pressure would either quit or burn everything down trying to fight through it. Rowling wrote in cafes while her daughter napped, turned constraints into creativity. Look at Sara Blakely building Spanx. She got rejected by manufacturer after manufacturer. But instead of giving up and getting angry, she asked each one, what would it take for you to say yes? Then she'd go and figure out how to meet those requirements. Male resilience says, push through the wall. Female resilience says, find a way around, under, or through that serves everyone. Back in 2020, when 90% of my revenue disappeared, I was in full battle mode, working 80-hour weeks, trying to force solutions, grinding myself into the ground. Meanwhile, the female cafe owners I worked with were having completely different conversations. Instead of, how do I survive this? They were asking, how do we all get through this together? They pivoted to community support, turned their cafes into local resource centers, built customer loyalty by serving their neighborhood in a different way. I was trying to be unbreakable. They were being adaptable. Here's what I learned. Real resilience isn't about how much pressure you can take before breaking. It's about how much value you can create while under pressure. The women dominating business right now don't just survive adversity, they transform it into advantage. When Melanie Perkins couldn't get investors to understand Canva, she didn't just keep pitching the same way harder. She changed her approach, found different investors, built proof they couldn't ignore. That's not just tougher than male resilience, it's smarter. Stop measuring your resilience by how much pain you can endure. Start measuring it by how much you can accomplish while pressure's on. But resilience without the right systems is just exhaustion waiting to happen, which leads us to the next secret that actually scales businesses. Hey you, if you're just here to passively consume content, hit the like button out of habit, or subscribe just to never watch again, don't. This channel isn't for spectators. It's for people who actually are on the path, who want to take action, who are willing to push themselves and challenge what they know. Vanity metrics don't matter. Real growth does. So if this channel speaks to you, if you're ready to level up and actually apply what you learn, then stick around and please give this channel a follow. If not, no hard feelings, but this isn't the place for you. All right, back to the video. Section 6. System thinkers. The sixth secret is probably why women are building more sustainable businesses than men. We grind, they design. This is exactly how successful female founders approach business differently. Take Sara Blakely again. She didn't just work harder to get Spanx into department stores. She designed a system. Identify the buyers, understand their decision-making process, create samples they couldn't ignore, build relationships with people who could influence those buyers. Most men would have just called some stores, sent more emails, pushed harder. J.K. Rowling didn't just write more books after Harry Potter's success, she designed a system. Books, movies, theme parks, merchandise, experiences, each piece feeding the other. Or look at Codie Sanchez. She doesn't just buy boring businesses randomly. She's built a system. Identify why businesses want to sell, create financing structures that work for everyone, then scale with proven operators. Here's what I see in the female-run cafes I work with versus the male ones. The guys are constantly firefighting. Order more coffee when they run out, hire when someone quits, react to problems as they come. The women, they've got systems. Inventory management that prevents stockouts, staff cross-training so no one person is irreplaceable, customer feedback loops that catch problems before they become disasters. One female cafe, Lisa, told me, "I don't want to work harder every year, I want to work smarter every year." That is system thinking. When my facility finally got approval and I could stop the Walmart parking lot routine, I didn't just move my old process to a new location, I redesigned everything. Batch roasting schedules, automated inventory tracking, delivery routines that made sense, customer communication systems that prevented those midnight crisis emails. The business didn't just survive, it scaled because I finally learned to think like the women who are already succeeding. Stop asking, how can I work smarter? Start asking, how can I build this so it works without me having to grind through it every time? Your future self will thank you for designing systems instead of just surviving the days. But all of the systems in the world mean nothing if people don't want to follow your lead. Which brings us to the final secret that changed everything about how I think about leadership. Section 7, approachable and inspirational leaders. All right, the seventh secret, this is the one that humbled me the most. And it's probably the hardest one for men to admit we need to learn. Here's the thing, this isn't a do this and win kind of skill. It's a way of being. And it's the reason my wife can walk into a room and get people to buy in before she says a word. It's approachable authority, relatable leadership, the ability to inspire without intimidation. And it's the superpower most male entrepreneurs never develop because we're too busy proving how strong we are to realize people don't want to follow perfect leaders. They want to follow real ones. I used to think leadership was about being the toughest person in the room, the one who could handle the most pressure, make the hardest decisions, never show weakness. Classic male leadership, right? Be strong, be decisive, be untouchable. But here's what I discovered watching my wife handle our kids, and later watching successful female founders. There's a completely different kind of strength. Let me paint you a picture. It's during those 100 nights sleeping in my car, and I come home between trips. I'm exhausted, stressed, probably smelling like coffee and Walmart parking lot. My kids run up to me, and I'm trying to be strong dad, telling them everything's fine, daddy's handling business, don't worry about anything. My wife pulls me aside later. They don't need you to be invincible, they need you to be real. She was right. When I started being honest with my kids, age appropriately, about the challenges we were facing, they didn't lose respect for me. They started rooting for me harder. That's when I realized I had leadership completely backwards. Look at how Sara Blakely talks about building Spanx. She doesn't position herself as a genius who had it all figured out. She tells stories about cutting up pantyhose in her apartment, getting rejected by manufacturers, making mistakes. People don't follow her because she's perfect. They follow her because she's relatable. J.K. Rowling could have hidden her struggles, the welfare, the rejection letters, the depression. Instead, she shares those stories openly, not for pity, but because it makes her success story something other people can believe in for themselves. Or watch Codie Sanchez. She's building a media empire, but she doesn't lead from an ivory tower. She's constantly sharing what she's learning, admitting what she doesn't know, asking her audience what they want to see. The female cafe owners I work with, they know their staff's kids' names. They remember birthdays. They create environments where people want to work, not just where they have to work. Here's what I learned the hard way. People don't want to follow someone they can't relate to. The male leadership model says, be so strong that people respect you. The female leadership model says, be so real that people trust you. And here's the important takeaway. Trust builds stronger teams than fear ever will. When I finally started leading Black Ink with vulnerability instead of just strength, everything changed. I'm not saying be weak, I'm saying be human. The women dominating business right now aren't doing it by being untouchable. They're doing it by being so authentic that people can't help but believe in their vision. Your team doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be worth following. We just flipped everything you thought you knew about successful business leadership. It's not about being the toughest person in the room. It's about learning from people who figured out smarter ways to build. Here's what you do right now. First, think about a business decision you're facing. Before you charge ahead with the male approach, ask yourself, what would Sara Blakely do? What would my wife do? What questions would they ask first? Second, find one female entrepreneur whose approach you respect. Follow her content, study her decision making, not to copy her, but to expand how you think about problems. Third, look at your team or your family. Where are you trying to be the invincible hero when what they actually need is someone real enough to trust? Because here's the thing, your breakthrough isn't waiting on the other side of pivoting how tough you are. It's waiting on the other side of learning from people who've already figured out smarter ways to win. My wife was right the night she questioned my business idea. She wasn't questioning my toughness, she questioned my strategy. The women building empires right now, they're not just working harder than us, they're working smarter than us. And the beautiful thing is they're not keeping it a secret. They're showing us exactly how they do it. We just have to be humble enough to watch and learn. The coffee's hot. The lessons are right in front of you. Your ego might resist, but your future success is counting on you to listen. Now go build something worth following. But first, a quote I want to share with you. In the future, there will be no female leaders. There will just be leaders.